Welcome to this week's installment of Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tejada, codenamed Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year James Earl Jones appeared in the movie titled The GOAT, about a great basketball player. He didn't play the GOAT. That was actually Don Cheadle who played the GOAT in that movie. But putting GOAT and James Earl Jones in the same sentence just makes so much sense anyway.
Yes, I love it. I don't know what streaming service it's on, but I'm definitely going to be checking it out.
Don't pirate it, and you can use Tubi, but don't pirate it, all right? Jesus, have some respect.
Yes, respect the late, great James Earl Jones, because today we always want to make sure to highlight many of the people who do such amazing work, not only within our community, but also within our community. If you get that, you get that. In this particular is a tribute episode that we have today for the late, great James Earl Jones, who we recently found out earlier this week on Monday, September 9th, had passed away at the age of 93. James Earl Jones was described as one of America's most distinguished and versatile actors. And I mean, I don't even know why they even had to say described. He is that and more, just like you said, the GOAT.
Yeah, and definitely we did a little homework before, coming on here and talking about what we know and what is commonly known. But one of the most incredible facts about James Earl Jones is that he had a stutter when he was a child. He had a stutter, and he said that, and that was because of some things that had happened, some dramatic moves in his life. But he said what helped him get control of his stutter so that he could do all the things that he was known for was by reading poetry, by engaging with art. That was his way of getting a cadence to his voice, to getting a rhythm. And his whole life changed because he engaged with art in a meaningful way, and it gave him something back. It gave him a voice that would be known for generations in generations and for generations to come. So, it's an incredible start to what became a legacy that I just don't even know if anyone could recreate, could even capture. I think it's one of a kind, what James Earl Jones accomplished in his lifetime, and it is definitely worth taking some time to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and speaking of just like taking the time to just go through his history a little bit, him reading that poetry and getting involved in art the way that he did, I mean, that's just such a great way to hear that, there is a bit of healing through these performative spaces. A lot of times where during that age, it was very hard, especially for a Black man, to make his way into spaces like that. So to hear that he not only found healing in so many ways, but again, like you said, to bring forward a voice that would inspire generations to come. He's been having this career since he started back in 1953. During that time, he worked as a stage manager as well as an actor in certain productions. And eventually he would end up getting his Broadway debut in 1957, becoming the legend in the theater that everybody knows for his presence, his voice, his gravitas. And night after night, day after day, performance after performance, he would just bring to life countless characters like boxer Jack Johnson in The Great White Hope, to being, for me personally, if it's not Lawrence Fishburne playing these characters, I see James Earl Jones playing Shakespearean characters like King Lear and Othello. And during this time, he ended up starring in over 40 or almost 40 different stage productions throughout his entire career, even recently doing a stage production of Driving Miss Daisy with Angela Lansbury. And during that entire time while he was on stage, he was just cooking in every other space when it came to television, to movies, to just even voice acting. Like, you know, when you think of someone who's on the stage, you never think of the fact that they had the opportunity to jump into all these other places and get their names known there. And it's perfectly reasonable for him to do so with a voice like that, why he is an EGOT winner. And during his time on film, you will see him in basically a part of 190 productions. Like, it's wild.
Those are Sam Jackson numbers. Those aren't rookie numbers.
Yeah. You know? And for us in particular, you know, we didn't get a chance to see a lot of his early work when it was first coming out. We heard of it. We saw clips of it maybe in passing in school and other than that. But the thing that I definitely remember growing up with were two roles in particular. Star Wars, showing the villainous dark side that he could put forth as Darth Vader. And then showing us the light against the Shadowland as Mufasa, the voice that basically guided young Simba and many other Lion Kings that would inspire a generation of people to look at Disney and love the way that they put together these animated productions. And really, if you really, really look at it, it's such basically a retelling of the story of Hamlet in animated form. And it makes so much sense why a Shakespearean actor, one of great work like James Earl Jones, was able to get that role.
I mean, the humanity and gravitas he was able to bring to an animated lion, it's still absolutely just crazy to wrap your head around. You know, this animated lion that he really brought such dignity and power to before the lion dies. I mean, I was going to say spoiler, but if you haven't seen Lion King, I really don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah, sometimes there are moments when it's a spoiler, and then other moments when it's a historical fact about our society. This is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, that regal nature is really what I think drew people in and what made it so tragic when he went. I mean, Mufasa is not on screen a ton of time before you go back and watch that movie and it's like he's in it less than you think. And but he made such a powerful impression. And I think that really is the kind of overarching thing about James Earl Jones' career, that he has done so much, but everyone, I think, could reach to a role that he's had and say that had a major impact on my life, on my entertainment and enjoyment. Because I don't think every actor can't claim that. Every actor can claim they've had good roles and they've had roles that people might recognize, but the ones that make an impact, I don't think everyone can claim that. And certainly as Mufasa, and you know, certainly it almost goes without saying, but Star Wars.
Yes.
Darth Vader, you know, originally he wasn't even supposed to be Darth Vader. The original actor, David Prowse, sorry if I'm butchering that, they recorded the whole movie with David's voice. And at the end of it, the director was like, oh, I don't know about this voice that you did for the entire movie. Since Darth Vader was in a mask, very convenient, they were able to dub it over, and for $7,500, James Earl Jones put on the performance for the first Star Wars. And for the first two movies, he didn't even take credit. He wanted to give all the credit to the actor that was physically there in the room. But once people started recognizing him, he was like, I guess I better put my name down in here too.
You imagine he was probably like, you got me. Let me just roll my name down.
Drive my hand behind my back. And it is a role that he continued to do as long as he was able until Obi-Wan, which is when he made a decision that I understand is controversial and people definitely are entitled to have feelings about it one way or the other. But at the time Obi-Wan was being put into production, James Earl Jones signed away the rights to use his voice specifically for Darth Vader. So Disney in perpetuity is allowed to use his voice as Darth Vader using AI software and archive footage of what they've already collected. So he made sure to establish this sense of continuity for a character who is one of the most iconic characters in pop culture history. Mm-hmm. And that's not to take away anything, and that's certainly not to say that a voice actor, given the chance, couldn't give us a Darth Vader that was approximate, or just a new take on Darth Vader we haven't heard. Like a Joker kind of thing, where there, you have a baseline, but there are different ones. But I do think it says something that, even though I personally don't think I would do the same, I think I would like my voice to rest after I've gone. I do really have to admire his decision to ensure the fans had that, to ensure his voice would never leave the fans in this character that meant so much. The measures he took were really bold, and I really think that that's something to commend, that he chose to make that even when he's no longer benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. I really think that is something to really think about and meditate on after he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm even thinking about it right now. I don't think I'd be brave enough to do that, because now that hearing the story in this particular way, I had some insight, but didn't have the specifics like I have now about what he did. And I mean, I gotta say, I do appreciate, as a Star Wars fan, the fact that he wanted to offer that to us, because he knows that there are people out there who love the world, who love the stories. And if he can, he wants to continue contributing to it. I do hope, though, this does mean that Disney will be very respectful of not just this character in general. Because now you're not just creating stories for a character. It's not like that anymore. It's not like a Joe Schmo number 13 who you're making a story for. This is a character who became an icon since his appearance in the 70s. And now, given the fact that the original voice, the person who was just like, if you're ever going to put this character out there, I really want to make sure that it's me, while still recognizing the people who are doing the body work of this character. I really hope that Disney, as well as whoever is the main person who is working as Darth Vader, takes into consideration that whatever they say, however story they want to put forward, they really have to also recognize this man in particular for, again, creating a character that will stand the test of time and be ranked as one of the top villains of all time, and have such an amazing backstory too. Like, this is a character that really became connected to James Earl Jones. It's a character that many people, especially nerds like ourselves, who if we had the opportunity to, we would love to hear him use any of the lines, or say any of the lines in front of us. So between Star Wars and Mufasa, I gotta say that was definitely, for me, some of the earliest memories I have of James Earl Jones. There's one last one that will always stick with me, because I watched this movie every single time that it came on Channel 11 when I was growing up. It wasn't until recently that I got the chance to see the full unedited version of it.
He's of course talking about Meteor Man.
Well, I gotta add another one then, because it was Meteor Man, but also coming to America.
The King of Zamunda.
Yes. Just having the energy that he brought forth into that. You could tell that he was having fun. Especially when you look back and you see realizing he's playing all these very kingly roles with these Shakespearean roles, and he's just like, I'm gonna give you the same energy, but I'm gonna have so much fun with this. I'm going to put in scenarios that are outside of what you will see as regal, but treat them truly regal as possible. Like Loved and Coming to America, the sequel, where he decides to have a funeral and he is alive for his funeral. And it's just like, this is exactly what you would expect from the way he handled it, exactly what you would expect from a very regal person who wants to be recognized. And it gave me a lot of joy to see that at the age that he was at, or definitely within his late 80s, definitely going into early 90s, he was just like, in a way, it was kind of preparing us for his own homecoming in a way. So I'm glad to see that James Earl Jones had an opportunity to give us that moment to, in a way, say goodbye to him on film.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, a little more believable that you haven't seen this than Lion King, but see it, because I think, James Earl Jones, he's done much more than, of course, Lion King and Star Wars. His theater work is just incredible. If you look at his resume, it's absolutely outstanding. He won the Tony Award for Great White Hope before it became a movie, and he was nominated for an Oscar, one of the few at the time Black actors to ever have that honor of being nominated for Best Actor. He really paved so much the way for so many other people. So, and Coming to America also, we get to see a different side. If you're used to seeing the serious or threatening side through Mufasa, go watch Coming to America and just let him make you laugh. Because even I've seen the movie countless times, and I still crack up every time he comes on screen and has a misunderstanding about American culture coming from Zamunda. And he is just so funny, and definitely in Meteor Man, even though it's a joke, whatever he's doing with his hair in Meteor Man also makes me laugh. Yeah. It's such a random movie in terms of actors assembled, but definitely also worth checking out. And he was everywhere. He played Santa Claus on Recess. He was in an episode of Adventures of Lois and Clark, if you want to bring it around to the DC things. He had done so much. So if you really are wanting more of him, there's a good chance there's so much of his work you haven't even seen or touched yet. So, jump on Wikipedia, start looking some stuff up, because there is so much more he had to offer. Not to even mention his audiobook and his narration work. Those are whole other categories of art for him, from him, that you can see.
Yeah. And just even some of the funnier stuff, like, he's done a lot of stuff on Sesame Street. So it's already there. He was just like, I'm going to work with the future generations. And even for us older people, fun fact, he's the voice of Maggie Simpson. Yeah, there's definitely an episode where he is the voice of Maggie Simpson. So definitely it does highlight for me that he has so many roles that tend to be forgotten about, because you never would expect to see someone like him in these roles. But once he had hit a certain age, you could tell that he was just like, I've done a lot. I've done so much to change the landscape of theater, done so much to change the landscape of sci-fi storytelling and all that. So why not just have fun with the spaces that I've been able to enter in? And it does give me a lot of joy seeing that all these lesser known works of his are still just as has just as much gravitas as his King Lear or his Darth Vader. It is amazing that someone who was in this space for so long was able to finally reach a point where he could just have some fun. So, because we are definitely a superhero show podcast, we've shared so much about capes and caps and every single outfit in between. But the most important part too about us is that we are also Black nerds. So while we love those stories of superheroes and supervillains battling out for good and evil, we also recognize how much of an impact we as a people have made within community to our communities and to everywhere throughout time. And James Earl Jones is just one of the many, a big one of the many who's been able to do that. And so, Andrew, I wanted to ask you, how do you think that James Earl Jones has influenced the landscape of actors and even specifically Black actors?
I think he showed them it's possible. I think, we've had so many great Black actors, Sidney Poitier, Denzel Washington, that have really broken these barriers down. But I think James Earl Jones just stood as just a reminder of where you could come from, where you could go, and that there was no ceiling if you just pursued it hard enough with emphasis and passion. He was supposed to, he thought he'd be in the army, for a while.
Oh, right.
He served in the army and he thought, okay, I'll do acting for a while and then I'll be in the army and that'll be my life. But he was able to, after he got discharged, came back, worked as a janitor during the day and did theater at night. And one of his first performances, he had one line to walk in and he forgot it. he forgot the line because he got nervous. But he said for a year, he stood in one place, said the line again and again. And in that theater, in the last years of his life, they renamed it to the James Earl Jones Theater, and it is in Manhattan to this day. So now there's a whole theater where people can't walk in without acknowledging his presence and what he meant to everyone. And I mean, you can just look at the tributes to tell about his impact. Kamala Harris, Bill Clinton, of course Denzel, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Spike Lee, Viola Davis, Mark Hamill, Barry Jenkins, Courtney Vance, Jamie Foxx. So many different people from so many different backgrounds have come out pouring out their hearts to honor his work and what he's done. And he did get an honorary Oscar. But I think this is also one of the cases, as great as this is, just a reminder that give pioneers like James Earl Jones their flowers while they're here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Name that theater after them while they're here. Tell them about how much of an impact they've had while they're here. Because when you are a person that does not fit the classic image of Hollywood, which is, let us be completely real here, let's put it in the context, as some would say, the traditional notion of Hollywood was the lead actors were white. The stories were about white people, and everybody else was supporting. And James Earl Jones was no supporting character. Even if you try to put him in a supporting role, you're not getting away with dropping James Earl Jones and walking away. He took the presence in the room. He showed that it was possible. So I think he is one of the biggest stepping stones. And the reason why we also talked about Lion King and Star Wars so much is because I'll say it again. I've said it before, I'll say it again. One of the most important things for breaking down barriers across the world starts with people seeing people that they don't live with, they don't interact with on a daily basis. They have to see them just living life. And then they'll understand. Ideally, they would meet them. Ideally. But we don't live in an ideal world. So the next best thing we have is to create works where people are just living their lives and looking. And then when those are presented, people can say, why am I scared? I see things that we have in common. I see things that we share. So when you have an actor like James Earl Jones who crosses all the barriers, where people listen or are so entranced by the performance that they don't care where he came from, that they don't care what race, creed, country he identifies with, and then they find out and still embrace him. That's how you open up the world. Because they say, if I can do that for Darth Vader, if I can do that for Mufasa, a lion, if I can do that for a lion, if I can give that grace and dignity to a lion, I can give that grace and dignity to human beings. It so often starts with art. So, it's hard to simplify or condense what he brought to the world and how that impact has radiated out, but it's there. It's everywhere around us, and it'll continue to be. So I think he will stand as I said earlier, he'll stand as one of the GOATs of Black actors and culture because of all the barriers that he knocked down. I think there are so many others that can walk freely in and move freely in Hollywood because he was there first with that booming voice, a voice so booming, no wall, no standards, no boundaries were ever going to hold him back.
Well said, man. Well said. I like there's nothing else I can add. I will just say one thing to close. James Earl Jones, thank you. Your 93 years of life, you spent 7 decades of it entertaining generation after generation, community after community, person to person, heart to heart. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd also like, normally we do the joke at the end, but I think it is most appropriate to leave with words that he himself said. You weren't going to the theater to change the world, but you had a chance to affect the world, the thinking and the feelings of the world. He took that chance, and every time he succeeded. So, thank you so much, James Earl Jones. Rest easy and know that in your 93 years, you changed our thinking, our feelings, and perspective of what a Black actor could be.